Hi, it's Roderick Givens here with San Absolutes and Superlatives relationship section in Piedmont Park in Atlanta. And I wanted to address something that I think is front and center of a lot of people's lives in some capacity, and that is relationships beyond romantic, and that is between family members and friends. And I'm going to identify something that has been a source of conflict in my life, and I'm thinking that it probably has raised its ugly head in other people's lives. So this is not TikTok simple, so I want you to kind of bear with me. And it's really just the assigning values to acts of service, okay? Could be products, but usually acts of service. So let me give you an example, okay? Let's assume I have a neighbor, okay? And I mow my lawn every, let's say, week and a half, 2 weeks. And my neighbor has a yard, and it's really easy for me to just go ahead and mow their lawn. And for whatever reason, they're not mowing their lawn, okay? And I see my neighbor, I already have my lawnmower out. I look at them and I say, hey, I have my lawnmower. Would you like for me to mow your lawn, right? And the neighbor looks at me and goes, you don't have to, right? It's a very common response. You say what? No problem, right? No problem. And in that, we are identifying what I would call a component, not the complete aspect, of social capital. And that is the exchange of services, right? Of people, that is the value that you have with your community in your social circle. And so I'm looking at this going, all right, some people might look at this as just a good deed, right? I do this for a lot of people. People do this all the time, right? There's other aspects that could flow into that, and that could be such as this is something of reciprocity, right? You'll receive something back at a later time, but I would say reciprocity doesn't really identify who it comes from. It just means that it'll come back in some form, right? And then there's other forms such as that are a little more specific, such as quid pro quo, which is definitely frowned upon and definitely in the financial community. But then there's you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, which it seems like that's acceptable in the political space, right? But I digress. So I make an offer to my neighbor, I will mow your lawn, and they say, okay. They may even say, can I pay you something or something, some form of compensation. Now, I want to make a reference back to money because a lot of people look at money as somewhat of an evil aspect, and I would say it's simply a medium of storage value. It's a medium of exchange and a storage of value. And it's easy to kind of say, hey, we both agree what that money's worth, right? And obviously, that's a whole different debate on what it's worth over different periods of time. But $1 to me should be $1 to them. Versus if I mow my lawn, what's that worth to me? And what's the value that I see that act of service versus what's that act of service to the person who's receiving it, okay? And I would say if I offer that service and I don't make it clear that there is an expectation of something to come back, then I should probably not expect too much coming back, especially if it's not in the same form. Like if I say, hey, I'll mow your lawn, and then later on it's like I have a lawn that needs to be mowed. If they say, hey, I will mow your lawn, then that's pretty even, and like service it, right? But if I make that offer with the expectation that someone's going to do something in the future, that seems to be a point of contention among family and among friends. And I guess the takeaway on this is that I see this as something that is just a lack of communication between two people. If I make that offer, especially if I make the offer. Again, it's different if someone, says, hey, can you do this for me? Someone asks me, if I'm on the other side, hey, can you mow my lawn? I go, okay. But if I see that as I'm expending either my time, my effort, or my expertise, right? That's TEA, and the last one is obviously M for money. Then I would say that that's a pretty fair exchange. But if I offer that and I don't make it clear that there's any expectation, then that's kind of on me, right? But I would also say that the real challenge isn't so much that you do it and the person expects something immediately back. The other aspect of it is down the road, if there is something that, if I offer to mow my neighbor's lawn, and then let's say a month later, I said, hey, can you give me a ride to the airport? And they're like, no. I might feel some type of way about that, right? But what I don't know if it's a challenge to say that because I mowed your lawn, that you owe me a ride to the airport. Because what's missing is there's not a mutually agreed value of the service. Now, a lot of people say that's not how I operate. It's not a tit for tat. That is in theory correct. But again, the reason why we created San Absolutes and Superlatives is because it is not about what theory is. It's not about research. It's not what we're supposed to do. It's simply a reflection of some of the challenges that are going on in our real lives. So if I don't make it clear what that value is that I offer, and then I assign a different value than what the person receives, that becomes a source of conflict. I hope that makes sense. Again, if I do an act of service that is kind of unsolicited, right? Not asked for, and I don't set an expectation of something coming back in return, then in my world, and again, I'm just using myself as an example, and I can probably go through examples with other people and they can chime in, then I'm probably in the wrong for expecting that to come back, right? And I don't know if other people feel that way, but I see this as a common theme of you did this and now you didn't do that for me, and therefore there's a source of conflict. So hopefully this makes sense. If you feel this is something that makes, you've seen in your life, go ahead and chime in. But also if you have a different viewpoint, I'd welcome it. But again, something I noticed in the my world and relationships, again, beyond just romantic relationships, when we're with our family, when we're with our friends, people we care about, sometimes there's conflict, and that's what we're here to at least address from what's going on. San Absolutes and Superlatives. It's starting to rain in Atlanta. We are addressing real life situations among the family unit.